Hey guys, welcome back. This is Ping. And today's episode is so cool because Hank went to China when he was 18, 19 years old. And he shared with us about why he decided to go to China for the gap year after graduating high school. And also some first impressions, what he did over there, and how he met new people or learning a new culture and even learning Mandarin language there. In the end, he also offers some recommendations. For example, if one is going to China, maybe try to limit communications or Netflix or that kind of hobbies related to home or native languages. Soak yourself in the new culture. Eliminate those things that can ground you in your comfort zone. So let's get started and give it a listen. Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert. In this podcast, I cover underrepresented and personal stories. Join me with a cup of chai and take a listen. All right, ready?
If you want to type notes, you can.
But I don't want to, sound like the...
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't do it, Ping.
Alrighty. So, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome back to Chai with Ping. My name is Ping Robert. Thank you so much to listen to my show. And if you haven't already, please subscribe me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I'm also available on Facebook or Instagram, so you can see a lot of updates about the show. And I also run a Mandarin podcast, so if you're interested, the link is in the episode notes. Today, we have a special guest. He spent a little time in China, and then he and his wife, Hayley, live in Denver area, and we met at church. And then they have 2 dogs, Gwen and Cody. That's something very fun about Americans. It's very important to have pets. And then, he is also a graduate student at Regis University and a dual licensure for counseling and marriage and family therapy. We're going to talk about that later. And he also spent a gap year abroad in China and had a lot of fun experiences and interesting thoughts. So he is here to share with us. Let's welcome Hank Shuler.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why did you hold?
Well, because you were clapping, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's you. When you're talking. So welcome so much for taking the time and come to my show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
And I know that you have so many stories to share, but we only have 15 minutes, so let's just dive right in. Why don't you tell us and our listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so currently I work as a administrative assistant for new home staffing, and my wife works as a software developer for Awana, and we both live in the Denver area. Yeah, and in between high school and college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and so through a long string of events, I ended up in China, and I can talk more about that, but it gave me a passion and a love for Chinese language, culture, and the people and the food and just everything about it.
Yeah. Is Colorado home for you?
No, Illinois is home. Ooh. So the Chicagoland area is where I grew up.
Yeah. And Hayley as well?
Hayley grew up in central Illinois, so in Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, and we met at school. So we met at halfway in between where we both grew up in Illinois.
Wow, okay. So after college, you guys decided to go to China?
Yeah, after college, we were asked to consider going for a couple years, and so we had planned out a trip to go to see what things could look like. So we spent 2 weeks in the spring of 2018, in April of 2018.
I heard it's a lot harder for foreigners to get in China right now. So how did you get there? I mean, by what kind of visa? Were you working there?
No, it was in 2013 or 2018, with Hayley or without Hayley.
With Hayley, let's focus on that.
So with Hayley, we just applied for the general 10-year multiple entry tourist visa. Okay. And the agency that we went through said, just apply for the 10-year one, you usually get approved. So we have a 10-year visa. Yeah. But it's only, I think, 30 days. So that's interesting.
Oh, so that was just a short visit.
It might be 90 days now that I'm thinking about it, but it was very short. It's shorter than some multiple entry visas.
Okay, got it. So, but was it the time that you started your gap year, or so? Why was it so short?
Why was it so short for the 2018?
Yeah.
We just only had so much time that we could take off of work to go visit.
Okay.
And then we had to be back in time. So yeah.
Got it. Cool. And then, so after the 2018, you went back again. When was it?
No, so
that was it.
No, that was it. No, so
okay.
My gap year was in 2013. So that was without Hayley.
Got it. Okay, so we're probably gonna focus on 2013.
Yes.
Okay, now I get it. Wow. All right, cool. So, okay. So why did you end up in China?
Yeah, so I'm very good at dodging situations or diverting attention or telling people what they want to hear. Yeah. So towards the end of my senior year, people are always asking you, okay, so where are you going to college? Yeah. And I was very good at just give them whatever they want, tell them whatever they want, and then they'll leave you alone. When the reality was I didn't have a plan. And this one friend of mine, we got lunch, and she saw through all of the garbage that I was giving her, and she said, "But like, what's your plan?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna go to community college or something." And she said, "You know what you should do? You should take 6 months off and like save up money, and then 6 months you should spend in Africa. And I think that'd be really cool if you took a gap year." Okay. And so I tried looking through some different business agencies to go to Africa, and that wasn't panning out. And it was June, and I was like, I need to get my act together. Yeah. And so I applied to 2 business agencies, and the first one said, "Hey, we really like your profile, but we have an age requirement of 20, and you're 18, so we can't accept you, but you should talk to the second business agency that I had applied to." And I was like, great. And they're like, "You should talk to the recruiter. His name's Josh." Yeah. And then the second business agency got back to me, and they said, "Hey, you should talk to our recruiter named Josh." 2 days before I'm supposed to talk to Josh, I was hanging out with my friend, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to get ankle surgery on both of my ankles. I'm going to be on bed rest for a while. I'm going to have to take a semester off school. Do you want to learn Rosetta Stone Mandarin Chinese with me?" And I was like, oh, that'd be like kind of fun and like interesting and different. Yeah. And then I'm talking to Josh, and I'm explaining to him, my background and what I want to do, like in regards to a gap year. And he said, "Well, do you want to go anywhere specifically?" And I said, "Well, I would like to go somewhere that's a little bit cheaper because I'm a high school student, so I don't have a lot of money. Yeah. But I'll leave it open." Because in the back of my mind, I was thinking, "Oh, you should do Africa." But I was like, let's just see what happens. Yeah. And so Josh said, "Well, since you don't have like a major that you're coming in with, like nursing or multimedia, it sounds like you want something that's a little bit more tailored to you. And we have this couple that does that in South Central China." Yeah. And I said, "Oh, Josh, like, what do they speak in South Central China?" And he said, "Well, there's like a lot of local dialects, but for the most part, they speak Mandarin." Yeah. And I was like, "Wow, okay, looks like I'm going to China." So that's how I ended up in China.
Wow, how long was that?
So that was for 6 months. So that was from January of 2013 to about June of 2013.
I could imagine you probably didn't have any idea how China would look like.
No, not at all. And it was hard. Like leading up to it, I worked 2 really awful jobs before going. Okay. And so I'm taking out trash into a dumpster. Okay. And it's like 90 degrees outside, and it's humid. Okay. And it's just awful. Yeah. And I'm like, China better be worth it.
I know. Or anything can be better.
This is so terrible. Oh my goodness. What if it's bad, or what if I have a bad experience? So.
Okay. So you took a flight and then just landed there. Where did you land?
So first I landed in Thailand for about 2 weeks for a conference. Okay. And then we, to save money, we flew from Bangkok to Hong Kong. Okay. And then took the subway station from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. And then we took an overnight bus from Shenzhen to Nanning in Guangxi province. And so 16 and a half hours, I think.
Wow, you really didn't have much money.
Well, I think it was just to cut corners. We probably could have flown and then it was me, another guy, and a girl. Okay. And the girl and I had talked later, and she had said, if we could do that over, I would have just flown and paid the extra money. So
because like, wow, that's a lot of trips. It's like jet lag was there as well. Mm-hmm. You must be super tired when you get there. What was your destination? Was it? It's probably not Beijing, is it?
Mm-mm. No. So our destination was Baise in the Guangxi province. So it's about, it's so different now as high-speed trains, because usually you would say it's a 3-hour train ride from Nanning, the capital. Yeah. But I think it's like an hour via bullet train. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
What was your first impression?
First impression of China was... I had some issues with going to the bathroom, and medically we had to try and figure that out while I was there. So I come in and I realize on the overnight bus, that we don't have a bathroom on it. So it's just whenever we stop. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to hold it. Yeah. So I fell asleep. And that's pretty at like 10 p.m. And then my friend woke me up at like 2 a.m. and said, okay, we got to go to the bathroom. Okay. And so I'm like really tired. I'm really jet lagged. I have like issues like going to the bathroom. And I just walk in and then I go to the bathroom and I'm like, there's no paper in here. Yeah, that's right. What? Yeah. Why is there no paper?
You got to prepare your own tissue paper.
So then I came out and my friend was like lucky enough to like, he bought some paper for me and gave it to me. But I was like, what? So that was my very first impression of China. Yeah. But it got significantly better after that.
Okay. How long did you take for you to kind of like wrap your head around? It's like, okay, I'm finally here in Guangxi. Because I feel like the whole environment shifted drastically. It's just like when I came here, I'm like, the whole street, the whole system is different, and people look very different. And it took about 1 week for me to really settle. It's like, okay, I am in Denver now.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where you didn't notice because everything was going so fast. Yeah. So it kind of happened over time. Okay. And I don't think I realized that I'd settled into Chinese culture until I had to renew my visa. So I had a 90-day multiple entry business visa.
That's right.
So I took a sleeper train from Guangxi to Shenzhen. Okay. And then went to Hong Kong and spent a couple days there. Yeah. And then it wasn't until I got into Hong Kong that I'm like, oh, this is not China. I miss China a lot. And so it made me just like really, really desire just lots of different things, whether it was food or familiarity with street signs and people talking to each other and the different things that you would see. Yeah. So I missed all of that as soon as I was in Hong Kong. And it just felt... I think the other thing about that trip was I don't like traveling by myself. It's very lonely. So I like traveling with people. Yeah. I think that the double side to that is sometimes when you travel with people, they maybe want to do some things that you don't want to do. That's and that can be very annoying. Yeah. But I think I would take that over traveling by myself because it can be very lonely.
I don't like traveling alone as well. I did that in Austria. It's so boring. Yeah, and then it's just like I see things that's new, but no one I can talk to. Yes. And then everyone's in their own group, and I look at them, I'm like, why am I here? Yes. It's beautiful though. Yes. It's like Vienna is very, very beautiful. But yeah. Wow. Okay. So after you already talked about renewing a visa, then in between those 90 days, what did you do?
Yeah, so one of my first projects was going into the countryside. Yeah. It was a village that was, or not a village, I guess it would be considered a town that was surrounded by villages that were in the mountains. And so a lot of the middle school students had never played soccer before because they never had flat land to play on. So I came in and I didn't teach English. I did cultural exchange because I didn't have a license or a teaching degree. Yeah. So I did cultural exchange, and it was just a mix of English and soccer. Yeah. So I do that once a week. Okay. And then So that would be in the mornings, and then after lunch, or sometimes during lunch, I would take a GPS Garmin tracker, and I'd go out into the mountains where the students lived, and so I would track with the GPS tracker the different trails that surrounded the town. Yeah. And so with that, we were able to kind of develop 爬山地图.
The hiking map. Mm-hmm. Wow, okay. Yeah. So, do they hike at all?
Who?
the students. Or it's just kind of a daily commute? I
think it's more of a weekend commute. So they'll come down probably on Sunday, and then they'll spend the week there, and then they'll go up maybe on Friday or Saturday and go back to their homes. But I wouldn't say that they would consider it a hike. Yeah. I think it was mainly one of the teachers that was our connection to the school. Yeah. One of my fellow interns would come with me a lot because she would just do cultural exchange English and the classes. So she would teach different classes unofficially. And then we had two groups from America come in, or from the U.S. that came in, and we did some hiking with them in that area as well.
So that's when the map was handy.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, but how do you make it? Do you use an app to mark whatever trail that you have walked?
Yeah, so I think Garmin had some sort of program or software that allowed you to put it down on paper. Yeah. And then we just started kind of putting it together, and we started pulling together different holidays of the area, different weather patterns. Yeah. So just information about how to get to the different trails and things like that was also included on the map. Ooh. So, and we included it in both English and Chinese.
That is so cool. Mm-hmm. And so did you use that to just, introduce friends to know the area?
It was mainly just a piece to sell in our coffee house as like a tourism product.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Tell me more about what selling something? Okay, more and more interesting now. So what is the coffee hub?
Yeah, so our umbrella company is Foresight Consulting and Cultural Tourism. Okay. And then underneath that, there's lots of different sub-companies. Mm-hmm. So one of the sub-companies was the Firefly Coffee House. Mm. And so that's open in the evenings from Thursdays to Sundays. And so there's usually a presentation every night. Yeah. I think they've evolved it into Saturdays being for kids, so parents that want their kids to learn more and more English. Yeah. They have little programs for them that they can do.
Got it.
But it was a lot of either people that wanted to be more Western English majors or minors, or business people that wanted to practice their English would come in. Yeah. They could talk to foreigners, or they could hear presentations about things that went on in America and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Like an English corner.
Yes, exactly like that, but in a coffee house setting.
Every night.
From Thursday to Sunday, yes.
Wow, okay. And then otherwise it's just like a regular coffee. It was the coffee house run by one of you guys, or? So
it was run by, I'm trying to think. It wasn't run by anybody in Foresight, so we would hire local people to run it.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they would also have an interest in English and so on and so forth.
Okay, what did you remember? What is so special? Like if there's a guy or a student who came in and the special memory about them.
Yeah, I think it would probably be my friend Mark. So I met him because I had expressed interest in learning Kung Fu, and they said we have a
Kung Fu master.
We have a Kung Fu master. he is I think he was in middle school or early high school, and they said he comes a lot. We will introduce you. So I think it was maybe within the first couple weeks that I was there, we introduced. He's like, "Wow, you are so tall." So then he taught me maybe a couple of movements. And then he said, "Hank, I don't know if I can teach you because on my grandfather's deathbed, or great-grandfather's deathbed, he told my dad that we can't teach it to anybody outside the family or any foreigners." Okay. And so I thought, in that moment, I am never going to speak to this person again because we can't talk. Yeah. But he actually ended up being my best friend while I was there. So he invited me to come to his PE classes.
Yeah.
He invited me to come to his class outside of PE, and I talked about different things in America. It was 3 things you should eat, 3 places you should visit, 3 things that you should do. I talked to, and we hung out a lot and just got to talk about different things, and so and I still talk to him today. So
how old was he?
So he's probably,
because you were 18.
I was 19 by that point. So I turned 19 on Chinese New Year.
Okay.
When I came in, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And he was maybe 15 or 16, I would say.
Like a Didi.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
Okay. Wow. Okay. What are the other experience that you had, which is like so memorable, you still kind of keep in your heart, that when you think of China or Guangxi or just, that gap year, you will share with other people?
I'd always talk about baozi, because it's the best.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's when I was explaining it to Hayley, she thought I was being silly.
Yeah.
Or she's like, no, this is going to be really gross. Because I think Americans think of, or people in the U.S., when they think of a breakfast, they think of sweet. Yeah. They don't always think of savory.
Yeah.
And so when I explained that it was a savory sort of dish, bun, she said, she said, no, this is going to be gross. Yeah. But now when we talk about it, she gets very emotional because she misses it very much. So she also loves it a lot.
Oh, okay. I can talk to you off the show about how to get baozi over here. Yeah. Some people are selling it online, and it's easy to get them. You just order directly. Yeah. Ooh, and you can surprise her. Hopefully not. Hopefully not after this episode is released. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Baozi.
So I would say that's a food.
Yeah.
That and sweet and sour pork. Also take me back. We would also go to it was a Muslim run restaurant, so Lao Zhuo La Mian, and we would get Dao Xiao Mian. And it was like the really thick noodle.
Yes.
That's also like,
wow.
That's also very.
Let's just pause a little bit, because I don't think all the listeners know what we're talking about. Baozi is a steamed bun. It's like a white bun with stuffing in there. What was your favorite flavor?
牛肉粉丝.
Okay, so Hank likes beef in there. And then what was that? 刀削面 is like a knife shaved noodle. So the noodle looks like little wedges.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
So how people make it, the chef will usually take a whole bunch of dough in their hand, and they'll have a knife. I don't know what kind of knife that is, but they will shave it right into the boiling water. And so it's just, let's think about, I don't know what are the equivalent to that. So it's like shaved small pieces of noodles in there, and then in a pot, and then you take it out. And what do you want like to eat with it? Soupy or not soupy?
Unsoupy, so I think we usually do 猪脚牛肉.
Ooh, potato and beef. Great. Awesome. Wow. Because I grew up in Taiwan, so that's a very Chinese dish. And then I grew up in Taiwan, southern Taiwan, which is like also kind of a concentrate of, we call them outer province people. So both sides of my grandparents came from China, so they lived together in the Navy base. And then there are villages for those military people. So then around those villages, there was a one Dao Xiao Mian restaurant. So that's how I know how people make Dao Xiao Mian, because usually people are at the back of in the kitchen, so we don't know how to. But that one is so special because they just shave it on the side of street. I didn't used to like it, but now I think of it, I miss that, that home flavor, and also just the whole atmosphere, like where my grandparents are from, and whenever we go and we take noodles to them, or we eat there, it's yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let me put myself together.
Okay.
All right, you talk about selling the hiking map, and then you guys also developed some postcards? What's that about?
So when I was there, one of my coworkers before I left said, take lots of pictures. And so I bought like a very low-budget point-and-shoot camera, which actually was really good.
Yeah.
Because when you're out in the countryside, everybody's staring at you because you're a foreigner.
Yes.
And you look very different.
Yes.
And so with the point and shoot camera, I was able to hold it down at my waist and I would just take pictures of people.
Yeah.
And I think it made it less awkward or uncomfortable or embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because then they didn't even know the picture was being taken.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't very loud. It was very small. But I ended up taking over 6,000 photos and videos while I was there.
Wow.
And so just gained this collection. And then my roommates and I were talking about, what if we, develop postcards?
Yeah.
And then we could sell those in the coffee house.
Yeah.
But they would have to be of things in Baisa.
Yeah.
So we just made sure that we found some nature and found some environments or found some really cool things that could be on a postcard and kind of develop those. And then the calendar, the calendar didn't come together. We had lots of photos for it. I just don't think anybody had, the drive to finish that one. But
okay. How did the postcards sell? I mean, because they're local people, right? So would they buy them?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I would say it was mainly for the people that were visiting from out of town. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's the aspect of like, oh, this was taken by a foreigner. So maybe there would be some differential in this is taken in local or this is taken by a foreigner. That might have been attached to it. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think being a foreigner in China is very different like being a foreigner here in the US. Did they treat you differently? Was there any example that they treat you so differently and you were like, oh?
Yeah, no, so you're always either being stared at. I was followed a couple times, and I didn't know I was being followed.
Okay.
So, I was new to, the store that we would buy groceries at.
Yeah.
And you had to take an escalator up, but I didn't know where the escalator was. And so one time I went to the wrong escalator, so the one that was coming down, not up. And I turn around, and there's, a group of, probably 7, maybe high school students that are following me. And they turn around, and they run, they scatter in different directions. Lots of people taking photos of you. There was one forum, local forum post that got shared with me, and that was me and my 2 friends. And so they said the title was, "There was an empty seat with the foreigners. I should have hopped on for the ride." Was the description. And you can see, so they posted a dozen, and you can see me seeing the person taking photos of us, and then you can see me talking to my friends and getting angry about it. Not that it's not that it wasn't the end of the world. I would say it wouldn't necessarily make me uncomfortable. It's just I don't know. You don't have to do that, or you can ask for a photo. So
you'll feel so much better when they ask.
Yeah. I think
they can take pictures with you, right? Okay.
So I'd say that was different. I would say the difference between, and it stinks. It stinks for both sides. So if a foreigner is in China, they want to practice their English, and so a lot of people will go out of their way to try and talk to you. Whereas if a foreigner comes to America, a lot of them don't speak other languages, and so they just kind of expect you to know English.
That's
and
right.
then they get frustrated with you when you don't.
Yeah.
Which is just really, really a terrible tragedy that kind of occurs. And it doesn't help the foreigner in China that's trying to learn Mandarin.
Oh, totally.
Because now all these people want to speak English with you and become more Western and practice, and that's okay. It's just, it's easy for you to lean on that and to not learn your language.
I think it's also challenging because sometimes the kids who have a little better English than your Mandarin, because you're also learning, but their level is higher. So then you kind of just all right, start
100%.
Yeah. So and they probably don't know how to talk to Mandarin students in a slower pace, right? Was that a frustration for you when you're learning?
I think a little bit. Yeah. I think I did a lot of fake it till you make it. Whereas a lot of people would give up and they would just say, 我听不懂. And I was like, no, I really want to figure it out. So there was one trip coming back from Guilin. It was me, one of my fellow interns, and then one of the girls that worked at the coffee house. So we went with her to Guilin because she hadn't seen her family in a while. And she said, hey, I will give you like the grand tour and I'll translate for you because everybody wants to go to Guilin. And so we said, okay, we'll go. And so we're sitting on this train, and I think everybody else fell asleep except for me and these two Chinese boys who are, their dad is standing kind of like in the back in like the in-between section of the trains. And they're sitting down with us and we're playing cards. And I think we played cards for like an hour and a half. And I had been able to use my very limited Mandarin to the point where like I could play cards with them, and they didn't know I couldn't speak Mandarin or understand what they were saying until after my intern friend woke up, and then she explained, oh, like we don't know, and she was just easy to give up. And I was like, I just think that you can gain so much from like just faking it and just like going along and picking up on what they're saying, repeating things back to them and mirroring it. So
it's a good tip. Yeah.
I think it can get you in trouble though, like if you just keep saying like haba haba or something. like this one guy, I heard the story that this one guy kept saying that, one foreigner, and he was talking to an older gentleman, and then when somebody came in that knew Mandarin, they explained to the foreigner, oh, he's trying to like marry you off to his daughter. And he's like, oh. So like that's
I accidentally say yes.
Yes, no. So like that's the two sides of that coin. I think that you need to definitely exercise caution. Yeah. But I think giving up too easily is I don't know, it takes the fun out of it.
Was there a moment that you have kind of a mindset shift? Because I feel like a lot of people who come out of their comfort zone and they start thinking about the other side of people. For example, for me, when I went outside and I realized, okay, when I was in Austria, I couldn't speak that much German. I became more understanding of, foreign students in Taiwan. I really want to just be there and support them. So I'll always approach those people who are struggling. And then, I'll take extra step to approach them, even they sometimes don't need me. Was there any moment that you had that shift of mindset? Or you start living differently?
This is such a good question. I don't think that it happened while I was over there. It could have. I think it became very real how little I know of a language, how bad I am at learning languages. And then it gave me so much more respect for people that would come over to the U.S. And that were struggling with English. But I was like, that's okay. So like, for instance, one thought that I had on like the plane ride back, there's this older gentleman that probably didn't speak much English, and he was being told to go sit in his seat, but he had to go to the bathroom, like the people that are working on the plane or the steward and stewardesses are trying to get him to sit back down, and I was like, they need to like require language learning for the people that work on the plane so that they can talk to them in their language. And I realize that's probably a very, hard task because of all the things that come with it, all the different languages, and you can't predict everybody that's going to be on the plane. But I think I felt very strongly about that. And then through, I think, the coffee house, I think I definitely spoke English way too fast at the beginning, right? And I learned to slow down and simplify, like choose more basic words, and be able to communicate much clearly or in a more clear fashion with people that maybe didn't have advanced or maybe intermediate English level. And there were times, so like there was one guy that was giving a talk, and he was from Turkey, and his English was a little broken, and so my mom had to ask me like multiple times while he was speaking, like, "Oh, is he saying now?" And so I think that helped with like listening to people that do not, maybe English isn't their first language, but they're doing their best to try.
I think I gained that tolerance as well. Just like not to listen for perfect English, but just to get a gist of it, because like grammar is so complex, and then when we work with international students, it's probably the message is more important. Wow, awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
What are the biggest lessons that you had in the time in China?
I think the first one, so we were walking in the streets of Guilin with my friend Hayley, who's my fellow intern. I was really so when Hayley and I were in orientation, we had to do an exercise where we had to eat chili with cardboard sleeves, so you couldn't bend your arms to eat chili. So the purpose of the meal was to feed each other chili. And so then we came back to debrief and to say, you're going to be in another country. You're not going to speak the language.
Yeah.
You need to get used to this idea of you're going to need to be helped. A lot of people are going to have to do things for you, and you have to it's uncomfortable, but you have to start getting used to it. And she says, I was really demoralized because I was fed by a man. And so everybody in the room laughed. And I was laughing, and then she started crying. And then I felt bad and ashamed because she's hurt. But then I was like, wait, no, it's okay. Because that was very funny for me in that moment. Yeah. So fast forward, we're both in China. She doesn't really know what she wants to do, so she just starts attaching to all of the projects that I'm doing. So I was going to the middle school in the countryside, and so then she attached onto that. And then I was doing language learning, and she attached onto my language learning. And so I think I was very annoyed by her at the beginning. But you can only, with the language barrier, you can only have so deep of conversations with people, either because their English is so limited or your Mandarin is so limited. And so Hayley was that relationship that I was able to have, that we could have, hey, this is what I'm struggling with the team, or this is what this person's rubbing me the wrong way. And so we were talking about, missing home and whether or not we missed home. When do we want to go back? And we were walking in these streets, and I'm like, this just feels so natural, and I don't know if I want to go back. And so in that moment, I decided, okay, I want to live abroad someday. I would like to live abroad in China, somewhere abroad. So I'd say that was one lesson. Lesson number 2 is to not write something off. So for instance, my friend Mark, who told me, hey, I can't teach you Kung Fu. Yeah. And then I said, that's it. That relationship's over. And then he ended up being my best friend. And Hayley, I thought she was going to make me tear my hair out. And she ended up being a very close friend that we were able to process so many things together with. Yeah. And then we take Mandarin. When I didn't realize how much Spanish I knew until I came to China. Yeah. And then I realized I know how to say everything that I need, but in Spanish. Hey. So I was so frustrated with the tones and the phonetics. It's that first month and a half that's rough, because it's so different than English. Yeah. And you think you're saying it right, and they're like, no, you're not saying it right. No, try it again. And I was so frustrated that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to come back home. I'm just going to speak Spanish all the time with people. Yeah. Who cares if I learn Mandarin? And by the end of my time there, I was like, I love Mandarin so much because there's no verb changes. And that was the one thing about Spanish. I was like, I'm getting lost here. All right. Yeah. This is starting to become a struggle right now to put it all together in regards to grammar and structure of the sentence. So I was like, I love Mandarin so much. So don't write something off and say oh, it's over. It's not going to work out.
Give it a try. Yeah.
And then the third thing I think was about, so I was in this age of kind of coming of age of 18 and 19, figuring out what does it mean to be a quote unquote man. I'd seen some other friends that had gone on gap years and gone through different transformations and breaking through different walls or different comfort levels. And I really wanted that. And when I showed up, I was 19 and everybody else is graduated college or they're planning on going to get their master's. So I'm the youngest by 5 years at least, with the people that were there and that were on my team that were in my age bracket. And so everybody's like, oh, you're the little brother, the little kid, and kind of treat me that way. And so I kind of almost demanded that people treat me like I'm older, give it to me. And I think that the process of becoming a man is less about demanding respect from people, and it's more about earning respect through proving that you can handle responsibilities over time, escalating over time. So maybe a little bit here, and then if you can fulfill this responsibility, will continue to give you more and stack up. I think that was the third lesson that I learned. Third big lesson that I learned while I was there.
Is there anything that you start doing differently after you came back? Because, the reverse culture shock could be there.
Yeah, I think so before I left, I was driving my car like a maniac and like a high school student. And when I came back, there was just, you have so much time, and I didn't have a phone. Like, I had a very basic, it didn't even have colors on it. It was black and green. So it was
like a dumb phone.
Yeah, it was a very dumb. It would last you like a week off of a trip, but it was, and I loved it. Anyways, so you don't have a phone, and you can't always speak to people, so you get a lot of time to think, especially when you're on like a train. Mm-hmm. So I took a trip. So I canceled my flight out from Nanning to Beijing, and so my friend's like, you should just take a sleeper train. Yeah. So I rode for 30 hours from Nanning to Beijing. Yeah. And you just have so much time to think. So that when I ended up in the car, I would just go like 5, sometimes 10 miles under the speed limit because there's just so much to think about. So I would say that was a big one. I would say definitely speaking slower, and like simplifying your English and understanding English better from people that maybe don't speak it as their first language. I was blown away by being able to order whatever I wanted. So, like, you just kind of, like, learn the characters and learn the words that you need for the meal, and then you just say it. Whereas, when I came back, I was like, I have all of the capabilities of ordering. So I was like, can you swap out waffles for hash browns? And I was just blown away that I could finally, say what my preference was for the meal.
Order at your liberty.
Oh, exactly.
It's interesting because you talked about, limited language ability, or it's not necessarily to be the most convenient or most comfortable place to be, but you still want to go back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is catching your heart?
What a good question. I think one thing was, when I left, I was pretty homesick, like within like the first 24 hours, because my mom made me cry, and I had a pretty touching conversation with my grandma before I left, and so there was a part of me that said, oh, I don't want to go. Like, and I'm at the airport, and I'm about to get on the flight, and I'm like, I don't want to go. And I felt like a very deep pain, but that pain never came back. And one thing that sticks out to me is there's always something happening. Or there's almost an adventure every day. Mm-hmm. And that didn't come to light until I Skyped one of my friends after not talking to him for like a month and a half, and maybe seeing him almost every day for like the past like 8 months before leaving. And I talked to him, I'm like, okay, so like, what's like the top 3 things that you've done? And he was like, well, I like bought this video game, and he couldn't think of anything else. And I'm like, I could think of like, 10 things that could top that, and that was just this last week. Like, there's so many things. So it's just like an adventure every day when you're abroad. I would say I think the language, but also the people. Chinese people are very, very, very welcoming and very. They are very encouraging. They also, like, I noticed that there isn't as much of a personal boundary when it comes to conversations. So, for instance, like it was during my first week where it's me and my friend John, and we are hanging out with his Erhu instructor, and we had just been at his house for the New Year's meal, and then the next day he was printing out the pictures at the park, and then he's pointing out each of the family members that are in the picture. And there's crowds of people that are coming up around us who don't know him, who don't know us, but they're just listening to Mr. Wei talking about his family. And I'm like, in America, this would not happen. Everybody would ignore you, or like
have some embarrassing.
Yes, no, and would not like enter like the circle or like get up next to you.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that was very interesting is everybody's a part of the conversation.
Yes, there is this culture of, I don't even know how to put it in English. It's 看热闹. It's like if there's something happening, let's just go get her and then just look at it. That what is boiling. Yeah. So, interesting. Cool. Before we end, is there anything you want to add?
I don't know. You pick something. I don't know what's that on.
If you go back, what would you do there? You work as an intern over there before, so like, what do you imagine yourself to do?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'd like to do is offer like counseling and therapy to expats that are over there, because I know that there are a lot of, it's different living abroad. Lots of different stresses and anxieties and pressures that come with living far away from your family and living far away from what's quote unquote normal to you. The different things that you're going to struggle with being abroad. So I think that's one thing that I'd like to do when I went back. Cool.
What would you say to those people who are about to go to a place that they have never been? They could probably have a culture difference or shock or you know, that kind of thing. How would you approach that?
Yeah, I would say if you could, try and like limit your communication with people back here as much as you can. Okay. Now, I'm not saying don't get support. Okay. Because like if you need support, if you need to talk to your family, like do it. But the less that you can rely on your own language, and the more you can start like relying on their language, the better off you'll be. Like just with interacting with people and soaking up more. But soaking up, I think, would be the second one. I think just ask lots of questions. Just like always observe and like keep your eyes open, and like if you can, take lots of pictures of the experiences, because what might be normal there, and it might become normal to you while you're there, might be drastically different back home. And it's important as you maybe share that with people and they say, oh, that's very different, you can begin to process, oh, that was very different, and how is it different. But I would say try not to lean as heavily on your social media or your Netflix and the things that can kind of keep you grounded in your comfort zone. And then I would say soak up as much as you can. Ask as many questions as you can. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Ping.
Yay! Thanks for listening to Try with Ping. If you think someone will benefit from this episode, don't forget to share with them. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you like my show, you can buy me a chai with small gifts. Details are in the episode notes. Till next time!